Hey there, everyone. So, I wanted to give you a few reminders that I notice regularly and that I wanted to put out there for you. Now, these are reminders, so this is not going to be a very in-depth video. These are things you should have learned in English 1101 and are now carrying into 1102. And that's the first thing, right? Keep in mind that things you learn in English classes, whether it's in the same class or in multiple classes, they build into one another. Right? So the things that you learned in English 1101, that's the building blocks for what you do in English 1102. All right? The things we do at the beginning of an essay cycle build into the things we do later in the essay cycle. So you should be using your notes from English 1101 from earlier in term and using those to advance your ideas as we go through. Okay, that is super, super important. So let's start my little reminders list here. Okay, before you start writing an essay, read and understand the assignment requirements first. Okay, and I don't mean like skim it. I mean like actually read it. It's really important that you understand what's required of you before you begin, because otherwise you'll be trying to mush things in where they weren't meant to be mushed, right? Once you realize, oh, I forgot. Right? So it's really, really important. The second thing, only use the primary sources I provide to you on Blackboard. You have no idea how many times someone submits a works cited page with the citation that I've already provided, because they're provided in the footers of your readings that are available for each of the essays. They submit a works cited citation that's different and it's incorrect, so you lose points. But if you use the one that I provide for you, you could just copy and paste that in, make sure your italics is looking right, and then you're done, right? So please, only use the citations or only use the sources that I posted on Blackboard, because that's going to actually save you points long term, okay, as long as you check those italics for the works cited citation. Another thing that I notice pretty regularly is never, ever, ever use like back-to-back quotations without evidence in between. Okay, occasionally you'll use like maybe a word from one quote and then maybe a short phrase from another because they're linked together and they build together to help you create your analysis. That's fine with super short quotations. And that can actually be very effective. But if you're using a sentence length or almost a sentence length quotation, no back-to-back quotes, because that's a lot of content for you to then have to go back and analyze, and then that causes an organizational problem for you and for your reader, right? So make sure your evidence and analysis, right, they go hand in hand. Allow them to do that. Evidence, analysis, evidence, analysis. Okay, that is super, super important. Back-to-back quotations are not going to help you. Okay, just putting that out there. Essentially, back-to-back quotations are a list. Let's not do that. Lists are for groceries, not for writing. Another thing, make sure you introduce all of your quotations. Never start a sentence with a quotation, right? Imagine this is one of those sing-along videos. If you know what I'm talking about, amazing. If not, basically, it's like a song. Disney used to put these out, and it would have the words along the bottom of the screen with a little Mickey Mouse head that would hop from word to word. Okay, picture your reader as the Mickey Mouse head. If you don't kind of segue into a quotation, they're going to end the one sentence being fine, and then they're going to boop, trip on the quotation mark that they weren't expecting. Now, there's a vital reason for this in writing, too. It's not just silly anecdotes about sing-alongs. It's basically because you want to provide your reader with some context. If the author is important, right, if they give you additional credibility, amazing, use that, right? John Smith says, that's an introduction to a quotation, okay? Use context, or maybe some analysis of the quotation that you're going to use, right? Show the reader how it fits in. That's a good way to start as well, all right? But it's really important that you introduce quotations in some way rather than starting a sentence with a quotation. Now, there is a way for you to level up your thesis and your analysis, and all of you should be thinking about how to level up your thesis and your analysis, right? If you're not, start. So the way to do that is you don't want to just say, okay, this is the theme, that I chose to write about, and I'm going to develop it using symbolism. Now you might say, well, why not? Why did you just roll your eyes a little bit? Well, because you can develop anything using symbolism, right? From any story, any poem, any novel. What symbol are you developing, right? What symbol are you using to develop that theme? That's where the money is, right? Because if you can show the reader that in your thesis, and then you can show them that in the body, amazing, right? You don't have to say characterization. Talk about the character's name, right? The development of Louise Mallard or whoever, okay? Super important to make sure that you're kind of thinking not about the vehicle, right? Not about the method, that you're thinking about the ideas that you're going to share. Okay, that is super, super, super important to leveling up. It is, sure, it's fine to say I'm going to be using symbolism, but the higher you go in English, the less that becomes okay, right? Even throughout this course, right? The longer we go, the less that's going to become okay. You're supposed to be learning and building. So level up. Don't talk about symbolism, character development, setting. Talk about that specific symbol that you're going to develop, that specific character or relationship you're going to use to develop that theme. Think about which setting are you talking about, okay? And share that in your thesis and share that in your analysis. Now, there will be times where you'll have to say that, like, I don't know, the open window symbolizes something. But if you don't really want to say the open window is a symbol, because that dead ends your sentence. You could say the open window symbolizes freedom, right? Because symbolizes then becomes active. Go for that, all right? Like, that's okay. Sometimes you do need to say it, but there are some instances, like with characterization, that you really don't actually even need to say in such simple terms as that. Okay, so just think about that in terms of leveling up. If you don't start here, start later, right? Work to level up as we progress through the course. And then especially if you take American literature or something else in the future, like, that's the level that's expected, right? Not symbolism, characterization, setting, right? Ideas. Okay, write in the literary present. What does that mean? Now, some of you might not have heard about it. We talked about it on the first class session that we met just briefly, but everything that happens in a short story or poem is happening the second you look at it, every time you look at it. So it is happening in your present actively, okay? So make sure that you are saying, maybe the unnamed narrator in the yellow wallpaper becomes, right, not became, right, becomes detached from reality. Okay, it's essentially just keeping everything in present tense, that when you're referencing the story. Okay, so just write in literary present. It makes your writing clearer. It's also kind of the standard English way. Okay. Match your ending punctuation in your quotation to your sentence, right? I often see a quotation, citation, end to the sentence, right? But there's like a comma, a straggling comma from the quotation that's still in there before the in-text citation. You don't need that comma anymore. Or a straggling period. You certainly don't need that, because then you're putting your citation on a little island all by itself, which we don't want, okay? So remove that punctuation mark at the end of the sentence, at the end of the quotation, if you no longer are needing it, right? Your original source needed it. You might not, okay? And that's not going to cause an issue with how you're representing the quotation. It is punctuation. It has nothing to do with the language of the ideas you're sharing. All right. One other little punctuation thing. If you end your sentence with the title of a short story, put the period inside the quotation marks, okay? That is just a little pet peeve of mine. It's proper MLA formatting, so we need to do it. But there are so many times that, the period comes out after the quotation mark. It looks weird. It's not correct. Just scoot it inside the quotation mark, Okay? And that's when you end with, a short story title or something else that doesn't need a citation after it. Because if you do need a citation after it, your period needs to go after the citation. Not before and after, not before, just after. Okay? And my last little tip here, use Grammarly. Okay? Grammarly will catch little grammar issues. I love Grammarly. I always use it just to double check my writing, and it has made my writing 10 times better. I was a decent writer before. I mean, I'm an English teacher, right? So I'm okay at it. But it actually made it so that I could notice patterns in grammar things that I didn't notice before, right? And I noticed where I struggled, so then I could actively think about it as I was writing. And that's really important, okay? And that's a really great way to level up your communication more generally. So use Grammarly, get a free account. You do not need to pay for it, okay? Because they have awesome features, but they're not features that we need for this class. So get a free account on Grammarly, either download it, use the web app, whatever works for you, but just use it for your writing. All right, so hopefully those reminders are helpful for you. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.